What is up, guys? Londrick here, and now I'm back with the second edition of Lundrick's Fave 5 this week. So, of course, we've covered Survivor Series, but there's another big event coming up this weekend. That's NXT TakeOver War Games 2. Obviously, War Games came back last year, and it really is one of the best gimmick matches ever devised, in my opinion. Just a absolute genius concept that Dusty Rhodes came up way back in the day. And obviously, it went away with the end of WCW and didn't come back last year. And now it looks like it's an annual thing, but all I can say is this year's War Games should be great. It's the back to Undisputed Era versus Pete Dunne, Ricochet and War Raiders. Looking forward to that. But we're going to go back in time, go back in history, and discuss Fave 5 War Games matches. Then in this video, I'll have a question for you subscribers that I'd like to get some feedback on. But anyway, onto the Fave 5. Coming in number 5, Team WCW versus Team NWO, Fall Brawl 1996. While I readily admit there's probably better War Games matches than this that didn't make the list as far as the actual matches go, as I've said before, this is always going to be a subjective list and not an objective list. But for the storytelling and all that, and just how hot the company was and all that, this one makes my Fave 5. So, for the last few years, War Games have kind of went on a downslide. Obviously, since the Sting Squadron versus Dangerous Alliance won in 1992. And then the War Games kind of became a Fall Brawl thing. So, in a sense, WCW were doing theme pay-per-views before the WWE was. Obviously, they did things like using Starrcade for Battle Balls. And from 1993 until 1998, War Games has always happened at Fall Brawl, no other time of the year. But since that time, War Games have kind of lost its luster a little bit. There was the one with Sting, Sid Vicious, the Shockmaster, the Vader and the Harlem Heat one at 1993, which was not good, but not that bad. Wasn't terrible, but it wasn't good. The 1994 was actually a really underrated one between Dusty, Dustin Rhodes and the Nasty Boys against Colonel Parker and Stud Stable. And then 1995, oh god, the Hulkamaniac versus the Dungeon of Doom War Games, yeah. And believe me, that wasn't even the worst War Games, amazingly enough. But 1996, I feel he did a great job of having a really hot War Games match in the kind of brought the prestige back to War Games. So WCW 1996, no need to go into big detail here. I mean, it's all documented in history and all that great stuff. So obviously, the rise of the NWO, Nash and Hall jumping to the WCW, Hogan turning heel, becoming Hollywood Hogan, the New World Order, kind of a big deal, you know. So of course, WCW started winning the ratings, yada yada yada, for 83 weeks. You probably heard that before. But in all seriousness, I mean, the NWO, truly a revolutionary angle. I mean, the hottest angle WCW ever came up with, I would say. Overall wrestling, the hottest angle in years and years. Some people might even say ever to that point. I mean, for me personally, I'd probably say some of the Mega Powers breaking up in 88, 89 was probably hotter than this. But definitely during the 1990s, up until that point anyway, the hottest angle we'd seen. Obviously, the wrestling world changed forever. I mean, even all these years later, the Bullet Club have kind of been borrowing and some even say ripping off the NWO. Even to this day, that's how influential it was. And what I loved about the build-up for this, I mean, it was great that the NWO, they would just go after anybody. There wasn't like the traditional bad guy stable that would just attack all the baby faces. No, the NWO would attack heels just as much as baby faces. I mean, if you were associated with WCW, you were an enemy of the NWO. And obviously, it's kind of led to unlikely truces between long-time rivals, faces and heels, all banding together to try and stop this NWO takeover type thing. I mean, just for example, look at the WCW team, for example. You've got Sting, Lex Luger, Ric Flair and Arn Anderson. So obviously, Flair and Arn, Sting and Luger, long-time rivals over the years. But they had to put the differences aside to try and stop the NWO. Now, the build-up for this one, for them, it was Hall, Nash and Hogan and a mystery partner who they weren't going to reveal. I mean, there's a lot of speculation who this was. Was it another WWF guy jumping over? Was someone from WCW going to join the dark side and come to the NWO? Or maybe a complete unknown was going to come into wrestling to join the NWO. Well, it seemed like Sting was going to be the turncoat. So they did it. Obviously, they were building up to this. They did an angle where someone was in a mystery limo for NWO, Ted DiBiase. Because Ted DiBiase was seen as the money guy behind the NWO, which just makes a lot of sense, really, when you think about the $1 Million Man character and all that great shit. So when Luger confronts him, Sting, wink wink, comes out limo and beat the shit out of Sting. And that's it. So it looks like shit. Sting's turn on WCW, join the NWO. So then we get the fall brawl. Sting's professing his innocence. Lex Luger is saying, I looked you in the eye, I knew it was you. Now, granted, Sting could have called Lex Luger in the 6 days before the pay-per-view and explained his actions, but apparently in wrestling, all your major life events either takes place on a Monday, a Sunday, or later on a Thursday. But I just kind of found that funny how all the wrestling's characters' big life events always take place on days they just happen to be on TV. So obviously, Luger was professing his innocence here. Lex Luger and the other members of Team WCW didn't believe him, and then we get the match, and I wouldn't say it was an awesome match or anything. I mean, obviously, like I said earlier, I think they were better War Games matches, but I loved the story. I mean, obviously the heat behind this as well, because the NWO had so much heat. So yeah, great stuff. I mean, obviously you got War Games veterans Ric Flair and Arn Anderson. I mean, they're always good for a good War Games match. Then obviously Luger, Sting, Nash and Hall in the first ever War Games match. So the match was really, really good. I mean, there was some good spots between Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair. I mean, I also found that dynamic interesting later on when Hogan was the heel and Ric Flair was a babyface. Kind of wish he'd done more of that in 1997, but of course, Ric Flair kind of got tossed aside a little bit. But I mean, they did have one big match on a Clash of Champions in August of 1996. But apart from that, they didn't really do anything with each other until 1999, which kind of a shame, but whatever. So, the last NWO guy comes out, and it is Sting, kind of. I mean, so wink wink, Sting comes out, does some damage, but the only problem is, I mean, if you've got a set of eyes, you can look on this guy, and that's not Sting. I mean, they did a decent enough job trying to disguise him, but it was fairly obvious it wasn't Sting. I mean, I will say that I know sometimes wrestling announcers have got to be stupid to help the plot, but it kind of just made them look like idiots for not realising it was the fake Sting. Then the real Sting comes out, really beats the shit out of the NWO. Then obviously say to Luger, is that good enough for you? Is that good enough for you? Shoves Lex Luger and then walks out of the match. And then obviously the next night he cuts that epic promo, which was the start of the transformation to Crow Sting, which was just all around great stuff. And of course, because the NWO are the hot new faction, and they didn't lose yet, the NWO gets a big win. So I would say definitely check this match out if you haven't seen it. I'll probably say about a 3 3/4 star match or something like that. Not an amazing match, but I think it was a really cool one and told a really good story. Now, coming in at number 4, and how ironic, I'd really just recently reviewed this show, so we're going back in 1991, Wrestle War, the team of Ric Flair, Barry Windham, Sid Vicious, and Larry Zbyszko. I mean, just to make this point, Larry Zbyszko is not a 4 horseman. He was replacing Arn Anderson in this match. I'm guessing Arn Anderson was injured. I mean, that's the only logical reason I can think of, that Arn Anderson wasn't in this match. So obviously it was really the Horsemen and Larry Zbyszko taking on the team of Sting, the Steiner Brothers, and Brian Pillman. So a really good cast of characters there. I mean, obviously from the heel team you got 3 Hall of Famers, Flair, Windham, and Zbyszko. And Sid will probably go in there eventually too one day. Then you got Sting, the Steiner Brothers, and Brian Pillman. I mean, Steiner and Pillman, not Hall of Famers. I mean, guessing in Pillman's case, it's just timing, because he tend to only induct one dead person a year, so I'm sure Pillman's time will probably come. I mean, it might come, like, I don't know, when his son Brian Pillman Jr. goes to WWE, because I'm pretty convinced that eventually Brian Pillman Jr. will sign for WWE, and will probably do alright for himself. And the Steiners, well, as long as Scott keeps being Scott, they're probably not getting in the Hall of Fame anytime soon. But obviously in the early 90s, they were probably the best tag team in the world. So now it's kind of a dark time in WCW history. I mean, the Jim Herd had been around for a little over a year, and yeah, just, oh god. The Jim Herd era in WCW is not good, guys. I mean, this is some of the most batshit crazy stuff ever. Although, ironically, the roster was actually talented as hell. And as far as from a wrestling perspective, probably had a better in-ring product than the WWF at the time. But of course, WWF, they had the market and they had the storylines, they had the characters and all that. So it wasn't until like much later on. The WCW was always seen as a distant number 2 to the WWF. So obviously things had went sour in 90. Business was down and all that. So Jim Herd turned to Dusty Rhodes. Got Dusty Rhodes back aboard now. Dusty had been in the WWF as a wrestler from 89, 90, and had his last televised match at Royal Rumble 1991. So at this point, Dusty was going to pretty much semi-retire. I mean, Royal Rumble 1991 was pretty much the end of Dusty Rhodes as a full-time wrestler. Although he would have matches after this, they were much less frequent, and he was going to go back and run WCW's creative this time. So obviously, Dusty had a successful run as Booker in the mid-80s in Jim Crockett, and he had some bad times as Booker in that time period as well. But he was going to come back and he was going to try and book WCW and get them back to where they needed to be. Now, ultimately that wasn't a success, but Dusty's first big idea to come when he came back was to bring back one of his greatest creations, War Games, and set it for Wrestle War 1991. So, obviously at the time, this was a second incarnation of the Four Horsemen. Sort of a second incarnation. Well, obviously the original Four Horsemen was the Andersons, Blanchard and Ric Flair, and then later on Lex Luger replaced Ole. But then of course, Luger turned face, left the group. Arn and Tully left for the WWF in 89. Then J.J. Dillon soon followed suit to become a front office employee. And then Horseman pretty much died after that. I mean Flair and Wyndham had an alliance on TV for a while. But then even Wyndham briefly left for the WWF. And then Horseman reunited in 1990, or right at the end of 89, when Arn and Tully were supposed to come back to WCW. But only Arn came back because Tully Flair flunked the drug test right before Survivor Series 89. So then it was Arn Anderson, Ole Anderson, Ric Flair, and then Barry Windham. But then Ole Anderson retired from the ring, and then Big Sid Vicious joined to become a Horseman. I mean, that kind of made sense to me because having a big monster in there gives you a different dynamic. And I think the theory was Sid's a big green guy, he could learn from the likes of Arn, Flair and Wyndham. So obviously then he had a decent run there as well. Obviously it wasn't as good as the original Horseman, but I would say it's probably the second best version of the group. I mean, although I did kind of like the Flair, Anderson, Benoit and Pillman Horseman as well. So Flair had been feuding with Sting throughout 90. I mean, Sting had beaten Flair for the title of the Great American Bash. Flair had won the title back in January of 1991. So yeah, awesome match. So obviously you had the Steiners, awesome tag team. So they were great to be in this match. Brian Pillman for me was the most interesting guy in this match, because obviously at the time Pillman was an undersized guy in a big man's world. Although ironically Pillman's muscular weight, Pillman was about 230 pounds, so probably wouldn't be seen as that small today. But obviously back in the 80s, early 90s, he was a little guy. He was short though, I'll admit that. I think he was only about 5'9" or something like that. But really one of the best workers in the business, pound for pound at the time. I mean, Pillman's style in 89, 90, 91, I think it was a few years ahead of its time, to be honest. I mean, look at some of the stuff Pillman was doing back then. I mean, he was one of the first guys to really do things like that. Then obviously, I think he had a few TV matches with Flair. I mean, he had an awesome one in '90. And if I'm not mistaken, there was a televised match with Flair right before this. Flair was having issues with the Steins as well, because was the Flair Scott Steiner match of Clash of Champions before or after this show? I can't remember, but they definitely had a Clash of the Champions main event around this time. So anyway, we'll get to the match, and just all action. I mean, this is what War Games is all about, just chaos and action and big moves and all that. So Pillman jumped the gun and started the match because he wanted to prove something. So Pillman's performance, I feel, was absolutely world class. Then of course the heels win the coin toss because they always do. Then the ring just fills up and gets more exciting. And then the finish. Sid Vicious, you absolute muppet. So Sid goes for the powerbomb, but he doesn't take into account though is the bloody War Games cage was quite low. Oh, sorry, I got indigestion there. It was quite low, so he lifts Pillman up, and what do you think happens? Pillman bounces off the cage roof and damn near kills himself in the ring. So what the hell did Sid think was going to happen? The cage was going to raise and Pillman wasn't going to hit it. I mean, it's really dumb move, and he could have really hurt Pillman there. Then adds insult to injury, Sid hit another powerbomb. This time he did it properly, not lifting him so high. And then they did a thing with El Gigante came out, because then I think they were doing a storyline on TV with Gigante and Pillman being friends. So El Gigante did surrendered for Brian Pillman. So the Horseman won, but obviously the face team didn't actually quit. El Gigante made the referee stop the match. So awesome match. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. Coming in at number 3, and this might surprise the hell out of people, we're going with the last War Games match. 1 year ago, November 2017, Houston, Texas. The NXT War Games this time. It's going to be, so you got the team of Sanity versus the Undisputed Era versus the Authors of Pain and Roderick Strong. So, after years in exile, WCW died in 2001. WWF didn't do a War Games match. I mean, by all accounts, there were a lot of pictures for a War Games match over the years, but Vince wasn't interested, and probably because it was a WCW concept, he just didn't seem interested in doing it. I mean, with the 2 rings and all that, I'm just guessing wasn't Vince's cup of tea. I mean, there were various opportunities to do one. For me, I think the best time to do one would have been around 2004 when Evolution got really hot. I mean, so you could have done something like, I don't know, so say Bad Blood 2004 maybe. You got Evolution versus Shawn Michaels, Chris Benoit, Edge, and maybe Shelton Benjamin or Chris Jericho. Something like that. I think that would have been the best time to do it, because obviously that would have worked as well, because Ric Flair's in there. And Triple H has got that very much that old school mentality. I mean, obviously, I think there's a running joke that he tried so hard in his career to copy Flair for years and years and years. But yeah, time went on to do, because obviously I'd been wanting to do War Games since forever, since I guess around 2002 or something. And it was just one of those pipe dreams that I was resigned to never ever happening. So, seeing to me, I was always destined to watch the old War Games matches and just hope and wonder what it would be like to have one in WWE. But fast forward 2017, Triple H has been in charge of NXT for a while. I mean, for about 5 years at that point. I mean, he's done some interesting things that Vince would probably never do, like have the women go on last, come up with the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic tournament, and things like that. But then he had the idea, let's bring back War Games, kind of. So obviously the announcement was made. I mean, because obviously the Undisputed Era, Sanity, and the Authors of Pain and Roderick Strong were all feuding in some way. I mean, there was a lot of chaos. Matches were getting interrupted. Loads of wild brawls were happening. So GM William Regal had to put a stop to this and had to settle it once and for all. And they would have settled it in a War Games match. So obviously it's not War Games in the original sense. I mean, obviously the original War Games was built on either 5 versus 5 or 4 versus 4. So this one's going to be a little bit different. You got 3 teams of 3, so that's 9 guys overall. I mean, WCW did do this in the infamous 1988 War Games with Team NWO Hollywood, Team NWO Wolfpack, and Team WCW, but that sucked. So immediately I was intrigued, but I would have preferred the traditional format, which is where they're going this year. And then you hear things like, oh, they're not going to have a cage, which at the time I was pretty annoyed about because it was less authentic. But I suppose wrestling's evolved over the years. I mean, obviously they needed the no cage to do high spots and things like that. So I was willing to let that slide, but I wasn't exactly thrilled about it. Then I heard stuff like shark cages and all that. I think, what the hell's going on? Can we not just have War Games as War Games was? So there was a lot of promise going into this match, but a lot of skepticism as well, because how was it going to turn out? It was even half the fan base even bothered about a War Games match anymore. But I will say, these 9 guys took this concept and really, really made it work. I would say they kind of modernised the War Games match. I mean, obviously they have one disadvantage, obviously WWE being PG company now. You can't have any blood anymore, which obviously that was always a staple of War Games matches, obviously. And I don't miss blood as such as a rule, but I do think the situations like this, and like Hell in a Cell matches as well, I do feel you could have blading matches like that. But anyway, so what they did, they substituted by having as much action as possible. I mean, all these guys here are youngish guys, great athletes, so we're going to do some awesome stuff. I mean, obviously, if you like, Undisputed Era had a really awesome night. Then you got like veteran like Eric Young, who I feel, because TNA did the Lethal Lockdown back in the day, so which was kind of War Games. So Eric Young had some experience there. Then you had Killian Dane as a athletic big man. I think he had an awesome night, actually, to be fair. I mean, he did some awesome stuff in there, including one in a spot where he actually ate the key. I mean, he ate the fucking key. Yeah. And obviously, you look at that with Killian Dane. I still feel like Killian Dane could be a breakout star on SmackDown. Because obviously Santy's been the main roster for a little bit. He's not really done anything. But I think Killian Dane's size, I mean, obviously he doesn't have the traditional WWE look of a chiseled guy, but obviously he's a bit fatter and big hairy bearded guy. But I think he could be successful on the main roster if they let him. But we'll see. And obviously Authors of Pain did a great job in this of being the big power guys. Roderick Strong, just a good all-round worker. So some really exciting spots. I mean, Adam Cole coming diving off the cage. I mean, that was always going to happen. As soon as we knew there wasn't going to be a roof on the War Games cage, someone was going to dive off the thing. I mean, but yeah, this match went on for like, 35 minutes or something like that. The action never stopped, never got dull, never slowed down. Just action, action, action. I mean, for me, it's one of the best NXT matches of all time. I'll say it was probably my favourite WWE/NXT match of 2017. I say overall, probably top 5 takeover matches in history. I mean, I just love this match, and I'm really, really interested now to see how the Undisputed Era versus Dunn, Ricochet and War Raiders are going to try and top this one. I mean, I do like the concept as 4 versus 4, so I think that could be better. And I don't know about roofs on cages and stuff like that. So, but I'm intrigued. I really am intrigued. I mean, if you want to get in the mood to watch this year's War Games match, I would say watching last year's War Games match is definitely a good idea. Coming in number 2. Number 3 was the newest War Games, but now we're going all the way back 30 years ago, 1987, Great American Bash Tour, and the very first War Games, and that is the 4 Horsemen, Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, Lex Luger, and J.J. Dillon getting in the ring to face the Superpowers, which are captained by the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, Nikita Koloff, the Road Warriors, and their manager, Paul Ellering. So, obviously, long before the Monday Night War, there was a little war going on between Vince McMahon and Jim Crockett. So, Vince started his national expansion in 83, 84. Started killing a lot of the territories, so the territories either dwindled or just died completely. But one territory remained quite successful, and it was trying to go national himself. And that Jim Crockett Promotions out of the Mid-Atlantic area. I mean, they had some awesome talent, and it was really, in a way, I kind of wish I was a wrestling fan in the 80s then, because obviously so much to watch really. Because you had WWF, you had NWA. I suppose depending on where you were in the country, there was all these different places to watch. I could just imagine like that wrestling in today's social media internet age. I mean, obviously, one of the great things about being around now, with having like the internet and all that, is you can watch all these promotions you want. They're all accessible. So if you want to, you can watch WWE, you can watch New Japan, you can watch Ring of Honor regularly, you can watch the UK scene such as Rev Pro and Progress, you can watch things like Evolve, even CMML, etc. I mean, you can find all this stuff now. I mean, it's not that hard, but obviously, so just imagine what the 80s would have been like in today's society. But anyway, so obviously I think Crockett had a really hot air product. I mean, at the time, obviously led by the Four Horsemen, who've been around for a couple of years at this point. And in that time, he pretty much feuded extensively with Dusty Rhodes. That was the big feud of the time, Ric Flair versus Dusty Rhodes. I mean, some classic stuff there. I mean, you can go back, watch the old Four Horsemen promos, watch the old matches and say, I would say this time of the Four Horsemen, the greatest group of all time in my opinion. I mean, a lot of people say the NWO, and that's fine. But I'll say the Four Horsemen in the 80s were just better in my opinion. You had 4 great workers, 4 good talkers, and more importantly, they actually did the jobs and put the baby faces over, because that was the one thing I've really got against the NWO, is he never really got their upcomings. I mean, they were heels, but they acted like complete baby faces and made the faces look like jackasses. But obviously the guys like Flair, Arn and Tully all made the baby face look good. So obviously one big change in early 87. Ole Anderson was getting older now. I mean, he was in his mid-40s at the time, maybe even a little bit older. And I think he was wanting to get out of the business full time, because obviously his family was getting older now, so he wanted to spend more time at home with his kid. I think one of the things, because I think he had a son that was in high school and had an amateur wrestling career, and he wanted to focus more on that. So obviously the old Ole left the Four Horsemen in about early 87. They just kind of faded away, to be honest. And he was replaced by a young man by the name of Lex Luger, this hot new rookie in the promotion. I mean, obviously you think of 1980s wrestling, because obviously that was the era of the bodybuilder physiques, wasn't it? I mean, that is what the promoters wanted. So Lex Luger came and had $1 million look. He came from a football background. I mean, he probably wasn't the best worker in the world at the time, but God, he looked amazing. So after the thought was put him in the Four Horsemen, which I feel, much like Sid later on, give them an interesting dynamic, because now obviously they had that big power guy that could match power with the likes of Nikita Koloff and the Road Warriors. And I think the theory was, let Luger learn from the likes of Flair, Arn and Tully, and then he'll break out later on, which is kind of what he did. So then on the other side, you had Nikita Koloff, who just turned babyface in 86, faced Ric Flair, Starrcade 86. They had the Road Warriors, who were just super hot. I mean, you look back and you watch some of the Road Warriors work. I'm not sure if the Road Warriors would get over as much today, because I think the fan base would be like, these guys suck, they can't wrestle, they can only do 2 moves, they're just muscle guys, they only get pushed because they've got big muscles, indie wrestling rules type thing. So yeah, I always wonder how the Road Warriors would get over today, but back then, they were just so different from what had been seen before. I mean, these guys weren't good wrestlers, but they just looked amazing, had awesome personalities, and there's just something sort of cool about them. And then this match was devised, and the match was going to be simple. Because you're going to have a big multi-man match. You're going to have 2 rings, then a giant cage over the top of that, then 2 guys will start, and then the initial 5-minute period, and then there'll be a coin toss, and whoever wins the coin toss gets to send a man in. to have a 2-on-1 advantage. Then of course 2 minutes later the odds will be even up to 2-on-2. Then it'll go 3-on-2, 3-on-3, etc. until all 5 guys in the ring. Then after that it's a match beyond, submit or surrender. So awesome idea that Dusty Rhodes came up with, man. I mean, you've got to love it. I mean, really great stuff. So then there's this big thing called the Great American Bash Tour, which was a big summer tour that was always, they wrestled like 35 days in a row or something like that. Maybe even more, to be fair, I'm not sure. Because it actually was like on this tour about a lot of untelevised War Games matches. I don't know the exact number, because there was also one in Miami as well, a guy named War Machine, but that didn't quite make the list because it'll never be as good as the first. So could they actually pull this off? I mean, yes, I thought it did. I thought it was an absolutely brilliant match, starting out of Arn Anderson and Dusty Rhodes. Just awesome stuff. I mean, Arn Anderson for me was the glue that held this match together. I mean, he was the workhorse of this match, always just bumping and working hard, trying to make this match great. And the crowd, awesome. I mean, I like watching 80s wrestling crowds, especially the NWA Jim Crockett crowds, because they were just so hot for everything. And it shows you can have a hot crowd about all this, this is awesome, or 1, 2, sweet, or any of that crap, on all this fight forever stuff. I mean, this is just a fantastic crowd who were into everything. I mean, then what was also interesting was you had JJ Dillon and Paul Ellering in there, who were managers. But I think Ellering seemed more like a badass anyway than JJ Dillon. Dillon just seemed like this old out of shape guy. And obviously that factored into the finish, because they did this as a convenient way to have the faces win but protect the heels, because it was the manager that got beat. So kind of, I think this is one where obviously they were going to go for Doomsday Device, but they couldn't do it properly because of the roof. Take notes, Sid. Sid, you should have watched this match before you had your War Games match. So obviously, with the roof being low, they couldn't do the proper Doomsday Device because there wouldn't be room to do it. So Animal kind of lifted JJ over his shoulder in a back suplex position. Hawk did the clothesline, but obviously, I think the danger was too much. JJ Dillon actually did blow his shoulder out. I mean, that was, I think he broke his collarbone in this one. But then it was actually JJ who submitted them, and then obviously the faces won. So yeah, I'll probably give this a 5-star rating. I thought this was one of the best matches of the 1980s, and one of the best War Games matches of all time, and definitely a classic that you need to check out. One of the best War Games matches, but not the best War Games match. That honour comes 5 years later. Wrestle War 1992. Sting Squadron versus a Dangerous Alliance. Now, if I recommend any War Games match in history for some people to watch, this is the one. This is the one for sure. I mean, wow, what a lineup this was. I mean, really was. If you look at the lineup, Sting Squadron, captained by obviously Sting, because otherwise the name would be a bit silly, wouldn't it? Really, Barry Windham, Ricky Steamboat, Dusty Rhodes, Nikita Koloff. So there you go. That's really all Sting, Windham, Steamboat already in the Hall of Fame. You think Nikita Koloff could probably go in the Hall of Fame eventually? I mean, I think that'd be nice. And you think when Goldust eventually retires, he'll go in the Hall of Fame as well. Then you got the Dangerous Alliance, and how about this for a faction? So a manager, Paulie Dangerously, which yes, Paul Heyman, obviously the valet, Medusa. Then the team got Ravishing Rick Rude, Arn Anderson, Larry Zbyszko, Bobby Eaton, and some young guy, what's his name? Some stunning Steve Austin, that's right. So yeah, one of the greatest stars of all time, Steve Austin, earned his career in this Dangerous Alliance thing. Now, I've always thought this, and I still believe this. I'd probably say Dangerous Alliance is probably my most underrated faction of all time. Really, to be honest. I thought they were just fucking awesome. Because they weren't around that long. I think they were only around for like 6 months maybe a little bit more. Because 1992 was the only year they were ever active. And I think it was an issue between Bill Watts and Paul Heyman, which let the Dangerous Alliance breaking up. But you look at that, man. You got the manager, Paulie Dangerously, that's always really big important figure. Obviously the Horseman had J.J. Dillon and things like that. Then you got the Valet, Medusa, Alundra Blaze, awesome. Then you got leader Rick Rude. Rick Rude was seen as the guy in the Dangerous Alliance. I mean, Rick Rude, an all-time great for sure. Probably the top heel in the company at the time. Then you got three great veterans in there. Arn Anderson, of course, a legend in the Four Horsemen. Did a great job in the Dangerous Alliance. And his tag team partner, Larry Zbyszko, they were the Enforcers. Obviously, Zbyszko was a big star for many years, going all the way back to the early 80s when he was feuding with Bruno Sammartino. Bobby Eaton, of course, one of the most underrated guys ever in wrestling, in my opinion. I mean, if you just want to watch an underrated guy from the 80s, early 90s, Bobby Eaton, I mean, obviously you've seen his great work in the Midnight Express over the years. And he didn't quite have the single success he was as a tag team, but a really good work. And then to top it off, they picked the young guy, the future, stunning Steve Austin. I mean, Paul Heyman predicted Steve Austin would be a huge star, and yeah, I think he got that prediction pretty much bang on. So, yeah, again, I think these guys are feuding in different factions. I mean, obviously Sting and Rick Rude had a little rivalry in late 91, early 1982, because Rude came into Paul Heyman had brought Rick Rude into the company with the intention of taking the Stinger out, taking Sting's US title. But in the meantime, Sting had become the WCW World Champion. And I can't remember off the top of my head how Rick Rude became the US Champion. I'm not sure. But then after that, Rude was also feuding with Ricky Steamboat. They're having an awesome feud. I mean, this is coming off the back of a great match at Super Brawl. And then they had a even better match at Beach Blast not long after this. I mean, this is around the time they were doing the storyline where Rude and Medusa were accusing Steamboat of playing away from home and trying to hit on Medusa. And then I think they had random women. Obviously, the idea was that Dangerous Line had paid these women to lie and say they were having an affair with Ricky Steamboat and all that, because that was Steamboat's gimmick. He was the ultimate family guy with the wife and the kid, and he was just a wholesome, good baby face. So great stuff. Then he had obviously the Enforcers feuding with Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes. So that was cool. I mean, Austin was a TV champ at the time. Austin had done stuff with Dustin. And I believe he'd done stuff with Windham as well. I mean, obviously, in 1992, Austin and Windham had quite a few matches. And I suppose Nikita Koloff was a wild card, because Nikita had turned on Sting like a year prior. I mean, they were feuding a year prior, which they had a match. Sorry, I just had to think about this. Great American Bash 1991. I still shudder when I think about that show. So the whole thing was, could Nikita Koloff be trusted? I mean, Nikita Koloff had come back. He was saying he was a babyface, he was a changed guy. So, and the idea was he had to earn Sting's trust before being on the team. So that was always the question mark, was Nikita Koloff going to turn on Sting's squadron? So with all that, you got the only way to contain all these guys in WCW was putting those two rings together, getting that big cage out, having a War Games match. Now, could they have a classic? Oh my God, this match is incredible. I mean, for me, one of the best matches ever. I mean, probably, I don't know if it's the best WCW match in the 1990s, but it's definitely up there. I mean, obviously, I think of stuff like Bret and Benoit, the One Tribute match, Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, Halloween Havoc, but this match has got to be right up there as well. Though I think at the very least top three. But there's definitely an argument that made this was the best. But yeah, just again all round action. I mean, Austin was an absolute bump machine in this match. He took so much punishment. Hellacious blade job as well by Austin. Oh, obviously you had veterans like that, like Arn Anderson and Ricky Steamboat. Young guys like Dustin Rhodes. Obviously heavy hitter like Rick Rude, and then obviously someone so over like Sting. And then they did a thing where I think someone was going to knock Sting out, but then Nikita Koloff intercepted. So Nikita Koloff was a good guy after all, and he wasn't going to turn on Sting. Then obviously the action goes down, and we get the match beyond, and I think they did a thing where I can't remember, one of the two, I forgot now which one it was, but it was Zbyszko and Eaton one guy held one of the baby faces, and the other guy, because they managed to pull the turnbuckle off the ring, so they were going to smash the turnbuckle into the guy, but they hit his partner on the shoulder. I think it was Eaton that took the hit, and obviously then they put Eaton in a shoulder lock, and then Eaton submitted, and then Sting Squadron won. So yeah, this is an amazing match, absolute classic. I mean, if you haven't seen the match, you have to see it. And that is a wrap, guys. So before I go, I just want to ask subscribers a question, really. So this is for you guys to tell me. So obviously, you probably noticed YouTube has a new feature now, and it's called Premiere. And what that is you upload your video, but you set it to upload it at a certain time, and then when that time comes, the video will play. But most importantly, while the video is playing, there's going to be a live chat room, so you could do that, and you could talk to me or talk amongst yourselves and just have a conversation. Now obviously it'd be pretty stupid to do it for like a slide video, because slide videos at the most like 1 minute 45 seconds. But I was thinking more for something like this. I was thinking maybe for when I release a Q&A to do that. So the question is, would you guys be up for that? Would you guys like to see me do something like that? Because obviously I won't do it unless I have you guys to talk to, because it'd be pretty daft if I did it and it was just me in the chat room talking to myself. I mean, I'm a pretty weird guy, but I'm not that weird. So yeah, I mean, so if enough guys decide they'd be interested in seeing that, please comment in the section below. But then the biggest issue really is time zone, because say I upload this now in the morning, it'd be like in some cases 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, because I had obviously like majority of my subscribers are from North America. I mean, that's obvious, isn't it? Really, I mean, so obviously the time difference here in England is completely different. So see, I did it in the morning time, and for me it'd be like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning for you. And I'm not expecting anyone to wake up in the middle of the night to talk to me. That'd just be daft. And if I do it later for me, like obviously if I want to do night time for America, that'll be like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning for me. And I don't really fancy staying up that late when I don't have to. So afternoon, say I did it like 5 o'clock in the afternoon here, that'd be like midday in America. And I imagine a lot of guys are either at work or in school or in college or whatever. So I'm not sure what the best. So yeah, that's the only issue really I can think of. So I think maybe if I did it, the best time would be about 11 o'clock, midnight, 10 o'clock my time. So it'd be like 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon American time. So I am thinking about doing it, but I just want some feedback from you guys. Like, would you want to see me do it? I mean, and obviously Americans give me some advice really on what the best time to do it would be, because that's the only issue I can see really, the time zone issue type thing. So yeah, and obviously I might do Survivor Series and Takeover War Games predictions in a slide form later this week. I don't have time now to do a audio commentary for it, because I've stressed myself enough doing these two Fave 5 episodes in 1 week. So I might do a Takeover War Games / Survivor Series predictions video in a slide form, maybe even Friday, or I suppose it'd have to be Friday, wouldn't it really, because I'm uploading this on Thursday. So again guys, thanks for watching anyway, and until next time, peace.